Have you noticed how your life can look completely normal on the outside, and yet something inside you keeps whispering that normal is no longer enough? You go through your day. You answer messages. You solve practical problems. You carry responsibilities, routines, expectations, and small emotional tensions you no longer question. And yet, in the quiet moments between one task and another, there is a subtle pressure inside your chest. Not fear, not sadness, but a silent certainty that something within you is reorganizing. You may even ask yourself, why do I feel connected and distracted at the same time? Why does life feel familiar, yet strangely unfinished? This sensation is not random, because the truth is not that you lost your connection. The truth is that the connection was never broken. Across all your lives, across all your existences on this planet and beyond it, that link remained intact. It never weakened. It never disappeared. It never abandoned you. What changed was not the connection. What changed was the condition of the human mind. In many lives, you learn to survive through dispersion. You learn to divide your attention, your presence, your emotional energy, and call that adaptation. You learn to live inside problems, urgency, unfinished inner dialogues. And over time, that created the experience of distance from the source. Not because the source moved away, but because your perception became saturated. Nos somos os Pleiadianos. Nos somos os guardios do campo emotional humano. And we speak to you in this way because the emotional field is the point of regulation between consciousness and embodiment. Your mental body connects naturally to awareness. Your physical body anchors reality into form. But your emotional field determines whether this connection remains stable or distorted. When the emotional field is unstable, the mind becomes restless. When the mind is restless, clarity feels distant, and even truth can feel abstract. This is why all your lives are about to change. Not because you will gain something new, but because you are no longer able to remain dispersed from what has always been present. As this shift approaches, especially as 2026 draws near, your sensitivity will no longer feel like a burden. It will become orientation. You will notice misalignment faster. You will sense falseness earlier. And you will no longer be able to pretend that inner instability is just normal life, because your system is preparing for coherence. And coherence is not an idea. It is a state, a stabilized emotional field, quieter mind, and a body finally ready to receive, without resistance, what has been reaching you across all your lives. What you have been feeling as distance was never disconnection. It was interference. Across many lives, your mind learned to stay busy in order to survive. Not busy in a productive way, but busy as a form of protection. Problems, worries, plans, internal dialogues, emotional loops. All of this created constant movement inside your awareness. And movement, when it never rests, creates noise. That noise did not cut you off from the source. It simply made the signal harder to notice. You were never disconnected. You were distracted. Each lifetime added layers of unresolved emotional experiences. Not because you failed to process them, but because survival demanded forward motion before integration could happen. So the mind learned to jump, from thought to thought, from concern to concern, from identity to identity. And over time, this jumping became normal. You learned to live around yourself instead of within yourself. This is why silence sometimes feels uncomfortable. Not because something is wrong, but because silence removes the familiar noise that once felt like safety. The mind resists stillness when it has been trained to associate motion with survival. But here is what matters now. Consciousness never withdrew. It never turned away. It remained present through every life, every form, every world. The only thing that changed was your ability to remain with it. When the emotional field is saturated, the mind tries to compensate, thinks more, analyzes more, searches more, and this search is often mistaken for spiritual growth. But searching is not the same as stabilizing. The shift you are entering is not about learning more. It is about settling. Settling does not mean stopping life. It means stopping unnecessary inner movement. As this happens, something subtle begins to reorganize. Thoughts lose urgency. Emotions stop demanding constant expression. The body releases tension it no longer needs to hold. This is not suppression. It is regulation. And regulation is what allows perception to become clear again. You are not becoming something else. You are becoming less fragmented. This is why the connection now feels closer. Not because it moved toward you, but because you are no longer moving away from it in so many directions at once. This is the foundation of the shift that is unfolding. The emotional field is not secondary. It is not a reaction layer. It is the central regulator of your entire system. Your mind is capable of touching awareness. Your body is capable of anchoring experience into form. But it is the emotional field that decides whether consciousness remains continuous or fragmented. When the emotional field is unstable, the mind does not rest, compensates. It analyzes, anticipates, replays, and searches. This constant mental activity is not intelligence, it is regulation failure. Unintegrated emotions do not disappear with time. They remain active beneath perception, creating subtle internal movement. This movement keeps the nervous system alert, even in moments that should feel safe. That is why clarity can come and go. That is why insights appear and then fade. The system lacks a stable emotional base to sustain awareness. What you are experiencing now is not emotional intensity. It is emotional reorganization. Your system is no longer capable of sustaining dispersion. It is orienting itself toward coherence. For this coherence to remain stable, the emotional field must receive a clear organizing signal. Language is one of the most precise regulators available to you. When you write a statement with clarity, three structural processes occur at once. First, the mind organizes intention into form. It stops wandering and aligns around a single signal. Second, the emotional field receives coherence instead of ambiguity. Emotion settles when meaning becomes clear. Third, the body anchors the experience as present reality. Muscle tone, breath, and posture subtly adjust in response. This is not suggestion. It is physiological and emotional regulation. Without this anchoring, integration remains abstract. With it, awareness becomes embodied. The integration already installs itself within you. To prevent dispersion and allow this shift to stabilize, the process must be anchored consciously. Ancor este proceso escribiendo nos comentarios. My emotional field stabilizes my awareness now. By writing this, you are not convincing yourself of anything. You are signaling readiness for emotional stability. And your system responds by organizing itself around that signal. From this point forward, coherence becomes the baseline. All your lives does not refer to memory in images. It refers to accumulated coherence. Across many existences, you refined perception without realizing it. Each lifetime taught you something about attention, emotion, limitation, and presence. Even when circumstances were difficult, nothing was wasted. What carries forward is not personality. What carries forward is sensibility. That is why certain situations feel immediately familiar. That is why some truths resonate without explanation. It is not intuition appearing out of nowhere. It is recognition moving through layers. You did not arrive at this moment empty. Every challenge you faced required adaptation. Every adaptation trained your emotional field to become more precise. Over time, sensitivity increased. Sensitivity is not weakness. It is resolution. Across lives, your system learned to feel more, notice more, and respond with greater subtlety. But without emotional organization, that sensitivity often felt overwhelming. This is why earlier phases of your existence emphasized survival. Integration was postponed because attention was needed elsewhere. Now that postponement ends. What you are experiencing is not the beginning of awareness. It is the integration of what has been developing quietly across lifetimes. This is why the shift feels deep instead of dramatic. It does not shock the system, settles into it. You may notice that you no longer resonate with urgency the way you once did. Old patterns lose their grip, reactions slow. This is accumulated awareness finding order. Nothing new is being added. Nothing old is being erased. What is happening now is alignment. All your lives prepared your system to sustain coherence without collapse. And now that coherence is becoming your natural state. This is not destiny. It is readiness. And readiness does not announce itself loudly. It reveals itself through stability. What begins in 2026 is not an event you wait for. It is a capacity your system finishes developing. For many lifetimes, awareness could only arrive in fragments. Moments of clarity appeared, but they did not remain. Insight surfaced, then dissolved. Presence came, then collapsed under emotional pressure. This was not failure. It was limitation. The emotional field was not yet able to sustain coherence without reverting to dispersion. So consciousness learned to visit, not remain. This is why spiritual experiences often felt powerful but unstable. Why moments of truth felt real, yet difficult to live consistently. The system did not lack awareness. It lacked emotional stability. Across many lives, your emotional field accumulated sensitivity. Sensitivity refined perception, but without regulation it created overload. Overload forced the mind into vigilance. Vigilance fragmented attention. This cycle is now ending. 2026 marks the point where emotional regulation reaches a collective threshold. Not perfection, but enough stability to sustain awareness without collapse. This threshold does not arrive suddenly. It is the result of long accumulation. You may already notice the signs. Less tolerance for inner chaos. Reduced patience for emotional confusion. A natural gravitation toward clarity and simplicity. These are not preferences. They are calibrations. As emotional interference decreases, the system reorganizes itself. The mind stops racing to protect itself. Emotions stop demanding constant release. The body begins to trust internal signals again. This is why the shift feels quieter than expected. It is not dramatic. It is settling. Effort belongs to fragmentation. This phase belongs to integration. The connection does not intensify because something external appears. It intensifies because internal noise dissolves. From this point forward, awareness no longer needs to be chased. It remains present under pressure, during complexity, inside ordinary life. 2026 does not introduce something new. It removes what was no longer sustainable. And when instability is no longer the default state, coherence becomes the foundation. This is what truly begins. You do not reconnect to the source. You stop moving away from it. This distinction matters because seeking implies absence. and absence was never the problem. Dispersion was. For many lives, your system learned to operate in a state of emotional alertness. Even when nothing was wrong, something inside you stayed vigilant. This vigilance became familiar, and familiarity was mistaken for normality. But vigilance fragments presence. When the emotional field is unstable, awareness cannot remain steady. Comes in moments, then retreats. The mind tries to compensate by searching, analyzing, questioning. And over time, this searching becomes exhausting. What is changing now is not your understanding. It is your baseline. Emotional stability is no longer an aspiration. It is becoming a requirement for coherence. As this stability increases, several things occur naturally. Thoughts lose urgency without being suppressed. Emotions soften without being denied. The body releases tension without instruction. This is not control. It is alignment. Alignment happens when the emotional field no longer needs to defend itself against experience. In this state, consciousness does not overwhelm the system. It integrates into daily life. You think clearly without effort. You feel deeply without instability. You remain present without forcing stillness. This is why the shift feels both subtle and decisive. It is not expansion upward. It is settling inward. For this alignment to remain stable, the emotional field must receive a clear directive. Not a suggestion, a signal. When you consciously state what is already organizing within you, the system locks into coherence. Language provides structure. Structure provides stability. Stability allows awareness to remain embodied. The integration is already active within you. To reinforce this alignment and prevent dispersion, anchor it now. Anchor este proceso escribiendo nos comentarios. Emotional stability guides my consciousness clearly. Writing this organizes intention, stabilizes emotion, and allows the body to recognize alignment as its present state. From this point forward, clarity no longer fluctuates. It remains available even under pressure. This is how coherence becomes lived reality. Your body was never an obstacle to consciousness. It was a receiver, waiting for coherence to arrive without distortion. Across many lives, your body adapted to emotional instability. It learned to stay alert even in calm environments. It learned to hold tension not as defense, but as preparation. This was not a mistake, it was survival intelligence. Over time, this state became familiar. Subtle contraction replaced ease. Constant readiness replaced rest. And the body learned to function under pressure while calling it normal. What changes now is not the structure of the body. It is the quality of the signal it receives. When the emotional field stabilizes, the nervous system no longer needs to anticipate danger. Breath naturally deepens. Muscle tone softens without instruction. The body releases effort it no longer needs to maintain. This does not happen through technique. It happens through permission. The body does not resist awareness. It resists instability. When awareness flows through an unstable emotional field, the body tightens to protect itself. But when awareness flows through coherence, the body recognizes safety. Safety is what allows presence to settle. This is why embodiment becomes possible now in a way it was not before. You may notice subtle but unmistakable changes. Your movements become slower but more precise. Fatigue feels different, deeper, more honest. Stillness no longer feels empty, but supportive. These are not symptoms. They are signals of integration. The body is learning that it no longer needs to compensate for emotional chaos. It no longer has to absorb unresolved tension. Can finally receive awareness without strain. This is a profound shift, because when the body is excluded, consciousness remains abstract. But when the body is included, clarity becomes lived experience. You do not escape into higher states. You remain where you are more fully. Daily actions change quality. Listening deepens. Reactivity slows. Choices become simpler, not because options disappear, but because confusion dissolves. The body becomes the place where coherence stays. Not briefly, not only in silence, but inside ordinary life. This is the stage where awareness no longer fluctuates with mood or circumstance. It remains present during complexity, during interaction, during uncertainty. When the body trusts the emotional field, and the emotional field trusts consciousness, presence no longer needs to be maintained. It stabilizes. And when presence stabilizes, life reorganizes itself quietly around truth. This is anchoring. This is embodiment. And this is how the shift becomes real. At a certain point, the search ends. Not because curiosity disappears, and not because life becomes static, but because recognition becomes stable. For many lives, searching was necessary. You needed movement. You needed contrast. You needed experiences that pointed you back to yourself when clarity could not yet remain. The search organized fragments. It gave direction to what felt dispersed. It kept awareness alive during periods when emotional stability was not yet sufficient to hold it. But searching belongs to instability. It exists because something inside you cannot yet stay. When the emotional field stabilizes, the impulse to seek weakens naturally. Not through discipline, not through renunciation, but through completion. You may notice this already. You listen to explanations that once fascinated you, and they no longer pull you forward. You encounter promises of awakening, and they feel loud instead of true. This is not disinterest. It is saturation giving way to clarity. Awareness no longer needs stimulation to feel alive. It no longer needs intensity to feel real. It no longer needs contrast to confirm its presence. The mind relaxes its grip on meaning. It stops chasing conclusions. It allows understanding to remain unfinished without tension. The emotional field no longer seeks validation. It does not need to be reassured that this state is correct. Stability becomes self-evident, and the body responds by staying. This is often the moment when people think they are losing something spiritually. But nothing is being lost. What is ending is unnecessary movement, the need to become something else, the urge to arrive somewhere better, the belief that truth is elsewhere. What replaces the search is not emptiness. It is continuity, presence that does not fade when life becomes complex, clarity that does not disappear under pressure, a sense of self that does not require constant reinforcement. You are not stepping away from growth. You are stepping into integration. Integrated awareness does not escape the world. It meets the world without distortion. Silence no longer feels like absence. Simplicity no longer feels like limitation. Stillness no longer feels like waiting. They feel supportive. From this point forward, learning becomes refinement, not accumulation. Experience becomes embodiment, not escape. Understanding becomes lived, not discussed. This is why the end of the search feels quiet. It is not an ending that announces itself. It is an ending that settles. And when the search ends, what remains is not belief, not identity, not effort. What remains is presence. Stable enough to stay with life exactly as it is. This is not the end of the path. It is the moment the path becomes ground. What you are experiencing now is not temporary. It is integration. Across all your lives, awareness gathered quietly. It learned through contrast, difficulty, and refinement. Now that accumulation finds structure. This moment is not about transcendence. It is about stability. Stability means you no longer need to move away from yourself to understand reality. Clarity remains present without effort. Presence does not collapse under complexity. This is what integration looks like when it becomes real. The mind no longer races to interpret experience. The emotional field no longer oscillates between extremes. The body no longer prepares for instability. Instead, the system rests inside coherence. This does not make life smaller. It makes life precise. You engage without losing yourself. You feel without being overwhelmed. You respond without fragmentation. Integration is not something you wait for. It is something you anchor. Anchoring transforms recognition into baseline. Without anchoring, awareness remains fluid. With anchoring, awareness becomes embodied. Writing is not symbolic here. It is regulatory. When you write, the mind organizes intention. The emotional field receives a stable signal. The body registers coherence as present reality. The integration is already installing itself within you. To allow this process to settle and remain stable, anchor it now. Ancor este proceso escribiendo nos comentarios. I remain connected and emotionally stable. This act is not for expression. It is for stabilization. From this point forward, coherence does not need to be maintained. It sustains itself. And we remain with you, not as guidance, not as authority, but as a steady presence supporting emotional stability across all your lives. This is completion.